Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Jake from GD Honey Acres. Just wanted to give you a lowdown real quick. It has been quite a bit since I posted a video on the YouTube channel. And that's because I haven't been doing anything real exciting with the bees lately. Yeah, we harvested a hair, got a little bit. I mean, I think we got like 7 or 8 gallons right at the end of spring, early summer. But there's been a big issue as of the past few weeks. It's been super hot. So I decided to leave all the supers on that weren't capped yet, but they could have got capped in that amount of time. And we're going to go in today and check and see if they're capped, if they're using the resources, because it has literally been over 100 degrees a majority of the past 3 weeks, and we're going to get that way again. If we have multiple supers on a couple of these colonies that are just completely packed, they got capped honey, well then we're going to end up putting some bee escapes. I got all my wood ones right here. We're going to be putting bee escapes on them if they need it. I am suspecting they won't. If they do, that'll be amazing, because then we can go ahead and get some summer honey off of our girls. Right now, all we got is spring. I'm hoping we get a lot more moisture coming in, because actually the goldenrod is coming up early, and all the sunflowers are all like 9 feet tall right now. So we should be getting fall honey coming in soon. So that's what I'm getting in there. If we can pull summer honey, we're going to start that off with bee escapes. You can see my smoker right there. She's smoking away. Bees are all super quiet right now. I'm hoping that means most of my workers, or at least a majority of them, are out and about somewhere. Also this year, I've been doing more of a hands-off approach on all the hives to see how they do. And I think they've been doing rather well. We'll know more once I get in there. And hopefully we start getting below 100 soon, because, well, the past 3 days it's been about 80 degrees, which is amazing compared to what it's been, but we're getting right back up into those 100-degree marks here pretty quick. I am recording on an iPad right now with a battery hooked up from Harbor Freight. It's one of those Bauer batteries. It's got the converter on it to go from AC to DC. So yeah, let's get started. First thing I got to do though is I got to use the old handy dandy garden scythe and cut down a bunch of weeds before we could ever get in. So let's go make all the girls mad by cleaning up around their houses. That's a statement you probably thought you'd never hear. Let's get after it. All right, so now a few of you may know, well, first off, I got everything kind of mowed down with that garden scythe. They work really well. I found mine at Orscheln's, which I now is Baumgart's, whichever one became Baumgart's. That's where I found my garden scythe, and had it for a couple years. I love the darn thing. Gone through, successfully mowed around everybody. A couple of them got buzzing at me pretty good. This was our swarm that we captured at the beginning of the season. This many supers is what we pulled off in spring, and I just threw them all back on because that was one heck of a hive, one heck of a colony. So I wanted to give them as much space to keep going to try to prevent them from swarming again and me losing their genetics. So I'm going to start with this one, and then we'll move back there, the tall one back that way, to Miss Sophia. She hates me, but you know what? We've got our differences. I got to do what I got to do as a beekeeper. What I do is trying to help her out. Also, check your veils, guys. You might have holes in them, and if you do, duct tape on the outside and the inside. That way they stick together and you're protected. Don't ever beekeep without a veil. I personally say don't ever beekeep without a minimum a jacket, veil, and nitrile gloves. The hat keeps the netting of the veil off my face. All right, let's start delving into this one, see what we find. So we're gonna pop this off. I did the smoke earlier. That just kind of gets their mind off of me. Let's go ahead and straighten this camera here. So yeah, the smoke just gets their mind off the beekeeper, what they're doing, and gets them getting ready, I guess you could say, in case there's a fire and they need to bug out. All right, let's pop this top. Actually, what we could do is just see how heavy these are. Ooh, I heard a lot of bees in there. So now Shawnee's teacher from college So when you pop them like that, let them sit for a second before you lift it up. That way they don't like come out and just like straight up attack you. This is pretty light. I'm not seeing anything capped in here, which is perfectly fine. Let's get this camera a little bit closer. I'm not seeing anything capped in there, which is perfectly okay. Perfectly fine. There's still lots of bees. Now we'll pop a frame. Well, we'll set this off to the side and we'll go ahead and check the ones down below, see how they're doing. I can tell right now there's no brood in here because there's no cluster of bees going on. When there's brood up in, like say, a super, you'll see a cluster of bees. These girls are generally pretty chill. Oh man, they propolized the heck out of that. Let's see what they're doing here. Okay, so they're loading in lots of nectar. Oh, you can see the shininess going on in those cells, but they're loading lots of nectar in. And that's gonna be my guess for all of these supers. Because my bet, they're really shiny, so they're still wet. My bet is that they used a majority of whatever else they stored for those hot days where there wasn't any nectar being produced, because we had no rain and our rivers basically ran dry. So more than likely, there's nothing being produced from our plants, and they had to use their food stores. But they are building them back up, which makes me happy. Yeah, this one's getting full here. So, with this other one being almost empty, I'm gonna go put this back on, and maybe in about a week, we might have capped honey out of these. Maybe. I do have a couple here that have single supers on them. We'll check them out. They're mainly, I always want to make sure that they always have enough honey stores for themselves to survive. As beekeepers, we are least important when it comes to our bees. To show you what propolis is, see this kind of green, snotty looking stuff? That's propolis. And believe it or not, the Egyptians used to mix that with honey and wax and have like a gum with it and chew on it all day, and it actually cleans your teeth. It's antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, all around. It's like a super medicine. They make it from trees. The bees do. They make it themselves from all sorts of trees. And they glue everything with it. And it also helps keep everything, I guess, antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal inside their hives. Now, real quick, I'm going to pop through and check these other ones out, see how they're doing. And then we're going to move on. I'll catch you on the flip side. All right, so I like to point something out here. On this frame here, this is a Langstroth frame. You see these girls are busy. There's butts in the air and all that there because they're filling these cells back up. We had capped honey all along the outside. This frame was mostly capped last time I saw it. So I think my hypothesis on, or my theory on, my thought process of leaving the supers on for the big hot spell was a great idea. And they did exactly what I thought they would, and they used up all their food stores during that dearth period. And I don't think we're out of it yet. Hopefully we'll be getting out of it soon. We are in a dearth. The only colony so far that looks like they've got an excess is my swarm colony that I caught this year, and they're starting to cap everything. So I'm going to keep going, but I thought I'd show you guys that. This is evidence of they had it all capped. I know they had it capped because I was in this hive right at the end of spring, but I left it. Glad I did. I've gotten down to my very last hive, which was the very first hive that we ever set up. Believe it or not, this super's mostly capped. Surprises the heck out of me. Let me pull one of these center ones out so you can see. By the way, once again, J-hook hive tool, that's what I recommend. But yeah, mostly capped right there, fully capped right there. Epic. what I'm probably gonna do is we're gonna start popping these supers off and see if all I've got left are deeps, which I'm not happy about that. Deeps when they get full of honey are super heavy. So what we'll do is we'll probably just pull these off until we get to the point where it's like, hey, we're now down in the brood chamber. So we'll add a deep, then above that we'll add an escape board, because we'll need to harvest this. That way, we can give them room to produce brood in mediums, because I'm trying to keep my hives, oh my lance, that is heavy, keep my hives at a medium deep combo for their brood chamber. Let's pull a center up here. Oh, have mercy. That one's completely packed full as well. You know, and the reason I'm not going to go, these are super heavy. These can get like 60 to 80 pounds, depending on how much moisture they get out of the honey as they dehydrate it. Because believe it or not, honey does not have much moisture in it. Most of the time when you harvest it, it's between like 15 to 19% moisture. Oh, have mercy. Let's pop this one. See if they're doing honey here or if they're doing brood. Okay. They're packing it in honey-wise. I'm going to see in this one if we have brood or not. If not, epic. And more than likely the brood will be more towards the center of the super here if they do. Because usually that's how they like to do it in normal hives. Which is why this right here is not capped yet. Because they have probably had brood here at one point. But they do not now. They have packed it with honey. And the one right next to it is fully capped. No brood. Same with the other side. So underneath this super here, I'm going to put my deep. And then on top of the deep, we will put in a skateboard. And I'll have 3 supers to harvest. And maybe get, at most, 4 to 5 gallons out of it. But you got to think, holy cow, that's heavy. We need these supers to be able to be stored in and for them to use it as brood if they need to. Ugh. So I'm going to throw a deep box right on here. That's empty. The comb is totally drawn out. If the queen needs to, she'll come lay eggs up in it. Otherwise, it gives them a place to store nectar and honey, so that way they don't become honey bound and the queen doesn't have a place to lay. It's getting dark. I'm gonna get this finished up. All right, so let's slap this deep box on here. Get the frames situated correctly because they're all kind of cattywampus right now. Then we'll get the escape put on top. Well, they did kind of go all cattywampus on us. But they are fully built out frames, so they won't need to use any of that honey or nectar to make wax, which is good, because here's the deal. It takes 10 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax. So in other words, it takes a lot of energy for them to make wax. Bee escape on top. Super on top of that. You want to make sure that they don't have a way of getting back in above the escapes. Heavy super above that. Ooga booga. And even heavier super. Mind you, I am 6'1", so I'm lifting pretty darn high on these. Oh, and they're heavy. They are heavy. Okay, so now the next trick, we are going to put this, I believe, upside down. And would it be nice if I could find some of my wire mesh that I left out here? Sure do. So on top, just because, provide a little extra reassurance here, I'm going to clean this off first. And then put this mesh right on top of it. Maybe a hive tool to help weigh it down. That way we keep any bees from getting back into these supers, because that will defeat the purpose of the bee escape. So we got that on. So right now, we're gonna have a small harvest eventually on this hive, which is the original Aduna hive. Hi there. And get these boxes freed up, cleared up, so that way we can distribute them to other hives if need be. We do have a couple of hives. Sophia hive, she's working on their second from top right now, and there's some bees investigating the top hive. I did have to add another super to one right behind the camera because their one box is almost full. Not capped, but it's full of nectar. So I gave them a deep on top of that just so they could keep working. The swarm hive, they're starting to cap everything. So we're gonna get honey. Hopefully this dearth ends soon and I don't gotta worry about bees anymore. I will never take from the brood chambers. That is the bees' honey, their food sources. That's not for the beekeeper. Remember guys, for the bees are always more important than the beekeeper. It's more important that they have honey than it is for us to have honey. So always make sure they have honey first. Never take honey from the brood chamber unless they are getting honey bound, because then the queen has nowhere to lay and she always needs a place to lay, because then she'll start to swarm if you don't have a place for her to lay eggs. But yeah, so decent day, kind of got an idea what's going on here. I did see some hive beetles in a couple of the hives. Now here's how I think the beetles got in. Our hives are at least a foot to a foot and a half off the ground, depending on which stand they are on. But there were some tall weeds near the entrances. If there's tall weeds, the hive beetles have a way of climbing up and flying in pretty easily right into the entrance of the hive. And also, two of them didn't have any reducers on it. They now have entrance reducers to the 3-inch opening. That's still plenty of air movement for them. They all have their upper entrance as well, so they'll be okay in the heat. I'm not worried about that. If they need a beard, they'll need a beard. The trees have grown like crazy because we had like 2 solid weeks of rain. Trees grew like crazy, so they've got lots of shade here from the hot heat of the day. So that's it for now. I'll let you guys know how it goes, and hopefully we'll be back for another harvest in about tomorrow. I should be able to pull these 3 off. I might leave them a couple days just to make sure all the bees are out of there, but there we go. Hope you guys are doing well whenever you are, wherever you are. I love you. God loves you. Jesus loves you. Have a good evening. Bye.